every time we would move, the movers couldn't take the potted plants, and we'd be in the car with leaves, slapping us, and no room in the cars. We're moving from the next place to the next with all these potted plants. But my mom, being a master gardener, really exposed us to our love for plants, and then our passion for changing and influencing medicine really started, at that time.
Are you curious about discovering ways of making your life better? Then welcome to my podcast. I'm Bob Nickman, and this is The Exploding Human. Listen in while I talk with all kinds of people in the fields of personal growth, health and healing, alternative therapies, psychology, spirituality, environment, and the future. I'm looking for those answers that make life better for everyone. You'll meet cutting-edge practitioners, doctors, artists, filmmakers, business people, and those who have overcome challenges. The brave, the curious, anyone who's out there helping us humans to explore, expand, and explode.
Hey, welcome to The Exploding Human. My name is Bob Nickman. My guest today is JODI SCOTT, and we're going to be talking about plant-based first aid and CBD, among other things, and her path to creating a company called Green Goo. But first, I'd like to invite you to visit my website, theexplodinghuman.com. Over there, you can listen to episodes, read synopses, see photos of my guests, read a little bio on myself. There is also a YouTube channel where you can listen. That is The Exploding Human with Bob Nickman. As I said, my guest today is JODI SCOTT. JODI has over 2 decades of experience and a bachelor's background in health psychology and pre-med. Along with her sister, and her mother, they created a company called Green Goo, where they have a unique way of extracting plant medicine and creating products, mostly for first aid and skin. And also, they have expanded to something called Good Goo, which is CBD-based products. She's going to talk about how this came about and the type of extraction method they use and what the company is all about. I'm going to let her tell the story because it's her story. Here she is. This is JODI SCOTT. JODI SCOTT from Denver. I'm excited to have you here.
Nice to be with you, Bob.
Yeah, we're going to talk all kinds of things, plant medicine, Green Goo. We're going to find out what Green Goo is, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe not yet. Maybe we'll wait a little while. We'll surprise the folks. That'll be the teaser at the top here. What's Green Goo? Stick around. Find out.
I like that.
Yeah, so let's talk about plant medicine and how you got into it. And I understand that your company is your sister and you and your mother. Is that what it said in the bio?
That's
a
right.
Family. I love
the
this.
Trio.
Because you can feel the love in every product. That's my new logo for you. My new, is it a logo? I guess it could be. All right, let's talk about plant medicine and how you got started and what was the inspiration for JODI SCOTT?
P.S. I'm going to trademark that. You can feel the love in every product. So thank you for that tagline.
You can have it.
There you go.
I don't even think you have to trademark it. Or maybe you do. I don't know. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm giving her this. This is a gift. I want no money. You can use this in court if I ever try to extract any kind of payment. This will help you.
Well, I feel the love. So thank you. That's great.
My love to you. Your new tagline. Okay, go ahead.
The Goo Love. So yes, my mom and sister and I started this company, and my sister is an herbalist and a midwife, and I was pre-med. And so I started out in the medical field trying to really reframe how physicians were interacting with their patients. So teaching them the biopsychosocial model specifically because, the methodology then, and this was before we were really talking about integrative medicine and holistic medicine, the approach was you prescribe a patient medicine and then you hope that they commit to it. And 9 times out of 10, they don't. And so, my goal was to try to educate and give tools to physicians to look at the patient in a more holistic frame to help them improve their commitment to their health and so forth. So, I'd say that, our passion for disrupting medicine started early. My mom is a plant lover. We grew up in the military and we had to move around every 3 months to 3 years. And it's kind of a funny story in the sense of my mom never wanted to put plants in the yard that we would have to leave because ultimately we'd have to move. So we always had a ton of potted plants. So every time we would move, the movers couldn't take the potted plants and we'd be in the car with leaves, slapping us and no room in the cars. We're moving from the next place to the next with all these potted plants. But my mom being a master gardener really exposed us to our love for plants, and then our passion for changing and influencing medicine really started, at that time.
Wow, wow. I love how that started so young. That's amazing. Was she into herbs, or that's something your sister got into?
My sister became the one who was most passionate about herbs. So when she went to herb school, was around the time that I was starting private practice, and she had this wonderful mentor who taught her the practice of making medicine, topical therapeutics from plants. And that was about the time my daughter was about a year old, and I'm starting to look at like neosporin and hydrocortisone and the ingredients, and it was an interesting observation because I was like, okay, everything that we essentially do in our home, like the food that we eat, the cleaning products that we have, the beauty care products that we're using are all super clean, natural based. But when you open up the first aid cabinet, it's like the exception of the rule, it's like all the chemicals. And I was like, ew, maybe there's something here to this. And then my sister at the same time, we started like exploring the herbs and the different things that they could be doing. And then, so I was like, Jen, like, let's look into this a little bit further. And, perhaps we can make a plant-based alternative. And then what was interesting is the more research I did, the more I discovered that we weren't alone. I would talk to all these sort of naturalists and purists, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we use neosporin, we use hydrocortisone, and they're like, but that's the only thing that works. That's the only thing that's going to get the job done. So we have to." And then the conventional consumer was like, I don't really care what the ingredients are. I just find it really inconvenient that this stuff isn't working and I have to go to the doctor. And, PS, you can only use these products for 5 to 7 days, discontinue if symptoms don't go away because, hey, it might cause like kidney failure. And so, that was the time where the light bulb really went off for us that we said, can we make plant-based alternatives that are superior in efficacy? So this is not just for the natural consumer. Let's make something that works better, has plant-based ingredients, and let's bring some sustainability too. You saw all these tubes being thrown into the landfill. Hence why we brought the aluminum tins in. And then let's bring some personality. Like, everybody, when we were doing the branding, everyone wanted something that looked very clinical, very much looked like it lived in an OTC set. And, we had a great, goofy, silly night one night going, what are we going to name this brand? And we're like, well, it's green. It comes from plants because we make the ingredients. And I'll tell you more about that in a little bit. And, the color of it is kind of green and it's kind of a goo. And we're like, it's Green Goo. And it was fun to come to that name and bring some personality into first aid.
I love that. What is the alternative to Neosporin, which I've used a ton of over the years, especially with my kids when they were little, and just, it's sort of the go-to antibacterial
ointment. It's
it's an ointment. It's a
good old
salve.
Yep. That good old petroleum based ointment that we are so used to using. And, by the way, neomycin, about 25% of the population is allergic to it. And we're seeing even more issues with treatment resistance to the antibiotics and sort of the side effects of that. And so what's great is now that we have the research that we're starting to see, people's mindsets open to these alternatives and not feel like, they're going to sacrifice a wound, for a natural alternative, and that something could actually work. And so we have a product called Green Goo First Aid, and we have a thing where we just call it what it is. If it's for dry skin, it's called dry skin. If it's for poison ivy, it's called poison ivy. And our first aid formula has 13 herbs and essential oils in it. And, this might be a good time to talk about the process, and then I'll tell you more about the ingredients.
Okay.
So what's so unique about what we do is we don't bring pre-made extracts to our manufacturing facility and put them in a container. We actually make the ingredients ourselves. So we bring the plants to the manufacturing facility and we take it through this unique extraction process, yield high amounts of the medicinal properties, and then these custom oils are put in all of these products. So these are custom oils that you can get nowhere, and they're high concentrations of the plants, and then you don't have all the sneaky ingredients. So, our Green Goo First Aid has this beautiful botanical profile of, 13 plants and essential oils. And these plants work together in this really great way. And when we were first creating this, antiseptic product, what we recognized, and, to add to our mission and vision, is to simplify, right? Like, be really efficient with what you have at home and reduce your waste. And so most people are not just looking for something to heal their wound. They want to take the sting out. They want to take the itch out. They want some anti-inflammatory properties. And so we said, well, what if we make it a first aid kit in one little tin? So you could have your first aid kit with you everywhere you go. So these beautiful herbs actually work together to slow down the bleeding. So you've got like yarrow and plantain. Plantain is nature's Band-Aid. You combine that with yarrow, the two work very synergistically to slow down the bleeding, increase the oxygen into that location, and speed up the healing. Calendula, which is probably in almost all of our products. Calendula is just an amazing herb that not only has antiseptic, antifungal, antimicrobial properties to it, but it increases hydration, has natural sun protection. So when we look at these herbs, we not only look at how they act by themselves, but how they also work with other herbs to improve the symptom relief. And so it's pretty fun. You never realize how convenient it is to have a portable first aid kit with you in your pocket. It's pretty cool.
I've tried a lot of different things over the years as an experimental person, trying to figure out ways to do it than the conventional. And, what I do a lot of times is I'll just go on the internet and look for natural ways to, do whatever I'm looking for. So I recently, I've had an ongoing issue with foot fungus, athlete's foot, or whatever you want to call it, over the years. Not virulent, not horrible, annoying, very annoying. So I found tea tree oil, and I started putting that on after I'd go to showering in the gym or something like that, and I shower. I wear shoes in the shower. There, I'm not going to go barefoot. I'm not.
Good choice.
I'm not asking for anything, but still, there's a little bit, and it works pretty well, and it smells pretty good. So I was like, okay, well, I'm not buying whatever that stuff was called. Can't remember.
Good job. You're like saving your organs, and I mean, let's even climate and in our environment by choosing these really natural plant-based alternatives. So that's great. And you'll find that you can use these things over time. And I mean, it goes against capitalism, right? Like, the more you use it, the less you need it. And that's a really great outcome as a consumer. And we find that with Green Goo, the more you use it, the less you need it. And that's why, performance matters. And along with the fact having clean ingredients, we have a saying in our house, and we like to look at skincare as like this holistic concept. And we use the acronym SHAMAN. And my daughter's 12 now. And so this helps her kind of discern when, a TikTok video comes up and someone's promoting like this great new makeup, thinking about the ingredients, discerning these choices. And so S stands for sleep. We all know that that's important, right? Holistic. H is for hydration, but it's not just the water that you drink. It is the food choices that you make. It is the body care that you choose, because to your point, you can Google and you can find things like aloe vera, rose hip oil. They're incredibly hydrating oils, and those things are nourishing to your skin. A is antioxidant. So I want her to be thinking about not just the food she's eating, but then the products that you have. And she's like, Mom, she's like, there's a lot of plants out there that are high in antioxidants. And so she's looking for things like blueberry and rosemary and lavender in her products while also thinking about what she's eating. And M is mindfulness, which we can come back to that. The mind and the skin are extraordinarily connected. And they're finding more research now. There was probably around 2016 that behavioral medicine started partnering with dermatologists and looking at what is the relationship between the mind and the skin, and is there a way that it can be influenced. The next A is avoid. So avoid parabens, phthalates, formaldehyde. Phthalates are the number one producing chemical in the world. And the US alone produces 1 billion pounds a year. And this is in all of our products. And it's an endocrine disruptor. And so thinking about the materials in which you buy products along with the ingredients. And then N is nutrition. You can get, we call it food for your skin. Look at the ingredients and think about, is this good for my skin? If you can't eat it, don't wear it. So I'm glad to hear that you're not using the other fungal medicine, and you're saving your toes for the tea tree.
Well, yeah, it actually works pretty well. It works better. That's
right.
That's really what it did work better. I didn't grow up with any of this stuff. I grew up with whatever the doctor tells you. They're the experts. They're not taught this in medical school. They're not what you're teaching. I mean, it really is what I found through this podcast. I sort of already knew it, but I'm really seeing it now. Is that doctors are, this is going to sound kind of dark, but they're somewhat shills for the pharmaceutical industry. There's no money in treating people with natural products, but there is money in treating people with a drug. If there isn't a drug to fix it, they're not going to they're going to leave it at that. It's like, well, we don't have a pill for that. We don't have, and I'm being very, sort of absolute, and and some doctors actually a little more open-minded than what I'm saying. But the conventional training, at least, maybe it's changing now, although it doesn't seem to be changing all that much. Better. I have a daughter who is actually in medical school, and some of the things that they're teaching, there's a lot of information to get across in a very short time. So I understand it. I mean, it's not, they're not studying to be naturopaths. They're studying to be conventional MDs. So, I do, and she understands that too. But, I get people on this show that went through conventional medical school and then kind of took that knowledge and went the other, added on this other type of learning. And what a great combination, but boy, does that take a long time,
It does. And to your point, it's a lot of education, but I do think, the consumer, and I hate to think of the patient as the consumer, but in reality, they have spoken and said, hey, I want to push the threshold of getting results. And it's nice to see that there's more research going into what might have been considered alternative modalities and not really accepted as mainstream. And so, 15 years ago, health psychology was a very disruptive category. And now fast forward, you're seeing, to your point, more of these holistic, integrative, still Western medicine practices because they're getting the results and it's showing it. And I was super surprised when I first started training resident physicians, and I would do rotations with them. And at the time, and thankfully this is now not a common practice, but then, pharmaceutical companies would come have lunch with you and, wow you with lunch and some cool pens and swag, and then do their study and say, hey, this is why you should use this inhaler. And, what really surprised me was not only how easily influenced they were, but that at the time they weren't teaching statistics and really getting into how do you interpret research and data so that you can have discernment in knowing when it makes sense to integrate that medicine. Now, of course, fast forward, that has improved significantly. Pharmaceuticals can't do that same kind of influence. Education has shifted in terms of bringing more research interpretive knowledge to the education platform. But it's been an evolution, and I think that's the part of why it's so important to be a voice in putting the pressure on evolution for all of us so that we can further evolve and getting the science and the data. I like telomeres. Have you spent any time with telomeres?
No, I'm familiar with it, and but no, I'd love to talk about that because what are they, like the things at the end of the DNA strands or something like that? It's
Yep, I call them the end caps. They're
end
the end
caps,
caps
yeah.
on your
So
DNA.
yeah, when I meditate to these certain frequencies sometimes that, and it says repair your telomeres,
Yeah.
or, and I'm like, I don't know exactly. I sort of looked up what they were, and I was doing these meditations with it, and it was really kind of great, to have these certain vibrations going into my body during a meditation, and this is some sort of new. It's like a new awakening to the science of genetics and DNA and telomeres and really the kind of the what would you call it, precision
Mm-hmm.
medicine that comes from knowing this stuff and looking at the, I mean, it's really the building blocks of the whole thing. So yeah, so you want to talk more about that? I'm a novice. I'm brand new stuff to me.
Well, and we all are continuously learning, right? And that's the beauty of curiosity. So never stop. I love that. Um, but yes, I think it's a data point that's incredibly insightful to learning more about your longevity and how you may be able to interact with your overall health and wellness. And for me, coming from a skincare perspective, that's where I started really diving into what is the relationship with our skincare and telomeres? And, they're finding that there is a significant volume of this enzyme that's in our epidermis layer that's more extraordinary than in other areas that can actually regenerate your telomeres. And so, what I found really interesting, and there's a connection with epigenetics being the environment, the you can influence your DNA through the environment and your behavior. And what I find so fascinating about this is that our skin, we just kind of chop it up as just like, oh, it's our skin. It's there to protect us. And perhaps our skin has a greater role. And, it becomes more about not just thinking about what not to put on your skin and what not to expose you, but potentially what more we can be doing to nourish our skin, to help with longevity, to prevent cancer. And, then it goes back to, the more research we're finding that mindfulness and skincare are related and skin health. And you're talking about doing your meditations that are related to improving your telomeres. So in calendula, so then you go back to like, okay, Jodi, what herbs may be in fact have a relationship with your telomeres? Calendula is one of them, and calendula is proving to have some properties that can regenerate your telomere length. And so I think we're on the cusp of changing how we look at our overall health and wellness, and I think it's a really exciting time looking at our own self as not only from a holistic perspective, but what we can be more in charge of. Because I think for decades we just really didn't feel like we were in charge of our own health and that we could really influence it outside of like, don't smoke, exercise, eat a well-balanced diet. And there may be more that we can be doing to fine tune, our longevity and happiness while we're here.
Yeah, I think one of the things that people have difficulty with, including myself sometimes, is that when there's a subtlety to the natural products that may not be recognized right away because they're not as sort of overtly, well, maybe toxic's the right word. They're not, they don't hit you with a bang, like some of these fake products or manufactured products, synthetic things. And so there's a tendency to go, well, it doesn't really work. But a lot of it, you wonder, is it not working the way you want it to because it's not as quote strong, or because you're out of balance, your health isn't at an optimal place, so it can't work because there's a desensitization. I wonder about that, particularly with skin being the largest organ of the body. I guess you would say, covers the whole thing,
So, I
Um,
mean, you're spot
yeah.
on. You're
Well,
spot
yeah,
on.
and I'm thinking like, I take a shower. I don't know what chemicals are in that water. I mean, I have water that I drink that's filtered and all that stuff, but I don't have filters on my showers. I mean, I don't know how much chlorine is in my local water or what. But when I'm thinking about, somebody said, well, if you actually were to weigh yourself before you went in the shower and then afterwards, you'd weigh more after the shower,
Mhm.
even though you're quote clean. Your skin is absorbing these chemicals. Now, am I terrified of this? No, I'm not. But
It's a data point. I mean, and
yeah,
that's why I tell my daughter, like, it's nothing to be afraid of because this is life, but it's more, how can we be informed to decide how we want to engage in this life? And no judgment, drink all the soda pop you want if that's what makes you happy, but at least you're informed. And I think
yeah,
to your earlier point, I think there's a couple things because when we came in to make a plant-based first aid product, this was before I would say the plant-based renaissance came to what it is today. Like you use the term plant-based today, people understand what
yeah,
that means.
they do. Yeah,
10 years ago, they did not. I mean, the first time I went in front of a pharmacy buyer and said, I got a plant-based Neosporin, he's like, I'm laughing out the door. He's like, okay, because we have wound care, right? We can't take a chance with wound care. We need to know that. And I think,
yeah,
in the earlier days with natural, it was really more like I'm choosing natural because I want a cleaner life, not because I think it's going to be a better shampoo or because it's going to perform better. It was a more like, this is my mantra. And then you add to that greenwashing. There's been lots of greenwashing because that natural consumer has shown that there's demand for them. And so, people want to get into that game and they want to make these like pseudo, natural products. And so I think there's a conflict in the natural space, which is one, there's the greenwashing. And then two, I think also to your point to underscore, you know, is the product there to perform or is it just there because it's a choice because I want a cleaner lifestyle? And a lot of that is attributed to either the process, which is why we're really like there's so many manufacturers that didn't want to make our product because they were like, why wouldn't you just go get pre-made extracts that are on the market and do what everybody else is doing? And I'm like, but our products work. They have to perform.
mm,
And the reason they perform is because of this process and because of this concentration and because of how this all kind of comes together. And so I think, now, fast forward, we're in the plant renaissance, if you will. I think technology has improved. I really attribute Green Goo's success today to the cannabis industry because that helps improve the technology along with the awareness of, oh, wait, plants can have function. They actually can produce results that you can have a noticeable difference to your point, because, people want to see a change. They want to experience the change. And sometimes they really need that change. That's what drove them to come to that moment, to that product.
yeah. What is greenwashing? I've never heard that expression.
So greenwashing is basically saying like we have a green product, but it's got hidden chemicals in
Oh,
it,
okay. So it's not
and
the
so the packaging looks green. Matter of fact, my daughter, I encouraged her because she's 12 and she's my daughter. She's a product junkie and she wants to go look at all the things, and she's obviously very influenced by her peers. And so she has this app where she can go into the store and put it up against the product, and it will give you a 0 to 100 in terms of the cleanliness of the product. And so many times she's like, Mom, look at this branding. Like, I would have thought that this was, a clean product. And she's like, it only got 20%. And so, marketing's gotten really savvy in terms of, portraying themselves as more natural than they really are.
Oh, absolutely. And it's, I get tricked by packaging sometimes. I'm not going to say I haven't, but I sometimes I'm suspect of it just because it's like, oh, they really designed this to sell. Or
True.
it's this. Yeah. Yeah. Now, the first sort of big experience that I had with, well, I guess it would be a plant, but it's an extra, it was a essential oil, was peppermint oil for my getting a headache.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my gosh, that thing works. And clearing your sinuses if you're kind of stuffy. So you just put a dab on each temple, and my headaches would go away. I don't get a lot of headaches. I'm a pretty healthy guy, but when I do, it almost, yeah. I mean, every time it works. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
I've taken a Tylenol for a headache in decades. And that's, obviously that's an extract from a plant,
Mm-hmm.
and it
We
worked.
we are, and you bring up an interesting topic, which is we are such creatures of habit, right? So you had a headache, you just typically would go to the medicine cabinet and take some kind of, headache medicine versus your peppermint oil that you're referencing. And when we look in and we study some of the consumer behavior when we're thinking about how can we produce a product that one meets the need to solve the problem but also bring them more value, like how can we serve our customers more and really stay true to this minimalism mantra. And a good example is we were going to make a vapor rub. So we started looking at, the traditional vapor rubs in the market. You're familiar with Vicks. And this is what made me think of it with the
Yeah,
peppermint oil.
yeah.
And
Menthol is
yep,
the big thing. Yeah,
you got it. And we found that the majority of the consumers using these products, this particular product, this vapor rub, was not using it because they had a cold. But because they were told that if like you put it under your feet before you go to bed, you'll sleep better. Or, you
yeah,
put it underneath your neck and behind your ears, it's going to boost your immune system. And the irony is that there's no sleep properties in that product. There's no antiviral properties. It's a petroleum based menthol. And so, what we did when we made our version, we call it Free to Breathe. And we added in there Ravinsara, which is a really incredible antiviral. We put in sleep properties that help you relax, different kinds of lavenders in there. So that if you want to really use this to help you sleep and potentially boost your immune system, there's some herbs in there that can cater to it. And I kid you not, I put this on my feet now every night before I go to bed. So now I've become one of those adopters of this practice, and call it psychosomatic or not, I sleep better. And if I don't have it with me, if I'm traveling and I forgot, I'm not happy about it. So it's
well,
pretty great. And it's really great to put under my husband's nose when he's snoring, just saying.
I don't, yeah, boy, that's a snoring cure you haven't heard about, or at least a mitigation of
Yeah,
snoring.
I think it just
Oh,
brings it down a notch.
the CPAP sales have plummeted since this product
Right.
exploded.
There you go. Get your Green Goo Free to Breathe.
Yeah.
Insomnia and snoring.
I mean, what's your process of seeing how something works and doesn't work? Because that must take a while. I mean, you've got to try it on, well, obviously yourself, you're going to try it, but how do you go about coming up with a new product, and how do you experiment with, actual people?
It's a
I mean, that's the
great
good news is
question.
these kinds of things don't really, you're not going to really mess anybody up too bad if it doesn't work. It's just like, oh, that didn't work. You're not going to be putting people in the hospital from herbs, I would assume.
No, but I think for us, because efficacy, we have to lead with efficacy first so that we'd never dilute that for the brand. And so if we haven't met that when we launch, then we go back to the drawing board because
Yeah. But
because we are
how do you try it
yeah,
out? Like,
yeah.
what do you try? I'm obviously you and your sister probably tried on
Mhm.
yourself first, because why wouldn't you? It'd be exciting.
But to your point, being a natural product, you're further scrutinized. So therefore you gotta make sure that you're leading with efficacy. And
Mhm.
so first and foremost, all the products are registered with the FDA. And so that's good for a number of reasons in the sense of it's really exciting that the FDA is now recognizing
Yeah.
certain plants as having medicinal active properties. Now, my sister, being the herbalist, would argue there's quite a few of our herbs that go into the inactive on the label. And she's like, marshmallow root, this should be an active ingredient because this is, what it does. But at this time, the FDA doesn't recognize it. And then we can only speak to the plant on the labels as to what the FDA has identified that plant to do. So, maybe calendula flower has all of these other proven medicinal properties. We can only, call out what it does, what it has been identified. Now, the beauty is this we'll call it the book. We call it the book of all of the research in the herbs that the FDA is now called to helps with the formulation process while also having an herbologist, Ayurvedic practitioner on our team with my, organic chemistry background and pre-med. It really makes this like beautiful vortex of we know our herbs, we know how they work together, and then bringing in clinical data along with anecdotal data to be able to bring all of this together. While, in the anecdotal meaning, we'll do soft launches, have people try the products for a period of time to make sure that they're getting the results that we want. And we've done some things where we've tweaked it along the way. If we felt like, oh, okay, you know what, we're seeing that, people need a little bit more of this herb to get to where it needs to go. And so that's pretty much the process. We are certified cruelty free, so we don't test on animals, which is not a common practice in the OTC space, but it's one we're really proud of. Um, and it's pretty. I mean, for example, our dry skin formula, John Hopkins has been using it in their scleroderma and skin condition department for almost a decade. And what's really great is I love when the patients go to the physicians and say, this is the product I'm using. And then we get calls, which is how John Hopkins reached out to us, from physicians saying, hey, I've got patients that are using your product. I've never heard of you. Like, what do you do? And matter of fact, I was on a podcast, like maybe a month or two ago with a physician. And she was like, I had no idea when I, was first introduced to you that you were going to be my guest, that I realized that my patients were talking about you and bringing these products. And it was actually the sexual wellness brand, which is really fun. And so, yeah, it's having that credibility is pretty important.
Well, let's talk about that brand, because anytime somebody says sexual wellness, I'm going to get interested, because who wouldn't?
It's pretty great. Southern Butter. That's the name, Southern Butter.
What can you do for me?
There you go. Well, as people tell me, they're like, I didn't think anything was missing in my bedroom until we found Southern Butter. And it was an interesting journey to land into the sexual wellness space, meaning that it was our customers that came to us and asked if they could use Green Goo for intimate purposes. And at first we thought, okay, there's just a couple, strange phone calls, let it go. But then more family and friends started, coming clean, more customers started asking. So my sister and I were like, what's going on here? There's something going on. So we went to look at the space and we saw very much the same parallels in OTC, which was the natural consumer was willing to abandon their natural ethos because they were told, these lubricants were the only ones that could get the job done. And then the conventional consumer was like, I don't care what the ingredients are. I just want something that works. And interestingly enough, again, no sustainability, lots of chemicals. And here, when we talk about skin and the transdermal absorption, we have places in our body where there's a higher rate of absorption, our armpit, our intimate areas. And you're taking these chemicals and a lot of them. And so you're absorbing a lot of it while also having a temporary hydration. So you'll find with these products, the more you use it, the more you need it because you're dehydrating yourself. And so what's fun about the Southern Butter, we brought in the plant botanicals, the calendula for the antifungal, anti-yeast, antimicrobial, all these hydrating herbs and plants, aloe vera. And you'll find that you don't your skin changes. It becomes softer, it becomes more sensitive, and it's more hydrated. And it's just fun. Like, you think about the lubricants that are on the market, it's very much about just the act of having sex. That's it. Here's your moment. That's it. And what we love with Southern Butter is it's incredibly inclusive, and it's designed to be like what gets you in the bedroom and what happens in the bedroom. So let's bring some essential oils in. Some people need to relax in order to get in the mood. So we have one that's very calming. Some people need like stimulation. So we have like cinnamon and sandalwood, and it's very much like, heating things up. We have, different tingly menthol sort of stuff. Some's just an aphrodisiac. And then what's great is like your skin smells good, the room smells good, and like you put your head on the pillow when it's done, and you're just like, wow, I'm gonna sleep good tonight. Like it's really, again, taking that like holistic sexual wellness approach that really hasn't been taken in the sexual wellness space. So, and I'll tell you, we have one called Enhance that is a stimulating butter for men and women. And a little bit goes a long ways. I used to have a bed and breakfast, and I would leave it in the rooms, and it was the best table talk for breakfast the next morning because people were like, oh, I used way too much.
No.
Yeah, a little bit goes a long way. So,
A little over enhanced, huh?
A little over enhanced. It's pretty fun. Yeah.
Do you have products in addition to topical products also in something
So they're
ingest?
Yeah. So they're lubricants, body butters, massage oils. Will actually be the first water-based lubricant approved by the FDA that is cruelty-free, because you do have to test on animals in order to get your medical device certification for lubricants. And so we've been working, and we could have, a lot of folks just went ahead and tested on animals so they wouldn't lose the sale. And we worked hard to not lose that certification so that we could preserve that. And pretty exciting to be getting that across the finish line.
Congrats. It's always good to come up with something great and new that works.
It's fun.
Let's talk about CBD, because I've had very little experience with CBD. I tried some on some inflammation on my wrist, didn't do anything. So I don't know, I was sold to me by a practitioner. I didn't get it at like Whole Foods or anything like that. It was something that was recommended as, by somebody, and she goes, I don't know if it's going to work. It works for some people, it doesn't for others. And I was somebody that it did not work for. It seems like a product that is sort of like what you were talking about with some of the supposed green products. It seems like it's made by a lot of companies that kind of don't do it the right way, and that it doesn't always work. And it seems like a lot of hype around the CBD thing. I don't know. I'm just because of my own experience, I'm like, skeptical.
You read my mind. There's a lot of greenwashing that happens in the CBD space. So, I think everyone just got really excited that CBD was going to be the fix all. And, we have the trademark of not all CBD is created equal. And we really mean that, because different processes impact the efficacy of CBD. Now I'll say, hemp and as a ingredient and as a nutraceutical is really just coming into its own. I'm a huge fan of the ingredient, but I think that ingredient alone isn't the problem solver. It's the process by which you put CBD into a product, by which you extract from the hemp plant and get that botanical profile, get the terpenes, get the chlorophyll. And then it's also, the concentration. And then it's what else is in the product to work together. So for example, we were extracting from plants, obviously, for a while when the Farm Bill was passed. And so it was our buyers that came to us and said, hey, we would like some CBD products. You're already extracting from plants. Could you make a CBD brand? And so it made sense for us to have a CBD brand. So our brand is called Good Goo, and we follow the same practice. So it's very much this like lipid infusion process that preserves the integrity of the plant, really gives you that entourage effect that you've heard of, that it's the full botanical profile versus what we call a lot of the other extraction processes, like the zombie plant. They strip the hemp of everything but the CBD, and then they'll sometimes bring the terpenes or the chlorophyll back in from other plants. So it's like this zombie version of CBD, and it's like it's disrupted the integrity of the plant. And you combine that though with the other botanical profile that we have in the other products. So, for example, our dry skin formula that's for eczema and psoriasis, you put that with the blue chamomile and the calendula, and and you blend that together. It's like it enhances its performance. And I think the endocannabinoid system is real, and building your cannabinoids on a regular basis is how you start to feel that impact. It feels like, my observation, it's like maintaining homeostasis. So you want to keep the cannabinoid profile, coming into your body, whether it's from food or from your topicals. And, but cannabinoids exist naturally and not just hemp. I mean, it's in echinacea, it's in mangoes, it's in black pepper. And so you can build your cannabinoid system through a variety of different plants, ingredients. But I think hemp gets a lot of the credit, right? Because it's the marijuana looking plant and it does
Yeah.
have a large volume of cannabinoids, but I'm a huge proponent of it. And I do think that the future of CBD is that we're going to find that it accompanies other ingredients in order for it to perform at its optimal rate. And it's something that from a nutritive standpoint that we're finding we're getting really great results in terms of, I'll call it homeostasis, and balancing the endocannabinoid system so that things can kind of calm down, and then other medications or herbs can be more active. But the beauty of decriminalizing it and putting science behind it and having it regulated is that the consumer can actually find the thing that works for them. And that's kind of my hope for the psychedelic industry, is that there's so much good data behind psychedelics and mental health, and perhaps there's a way that same kind of regulation, so that people can know what they're signing up for, and perhaps have it serve them in the way that it needs to serve them, that could happen.
Yeah, I've had people on here that talk about microdosing, and I've never microed anything in my life. I don't know how to do that. I'm not Mr. Moderation, so I steer clear of all that kind of stuff because I'm a little worried about my what I'm gonna do if I like something.
Your micro became macro.
Yeah, exactly. So knowing that about my personal makeup is kept me away from even experimenting in that area. But it is a fascinating thing to think that, I mean, and those are plants, those come from the earth, and the idea that so do we. So it would make sense that the things that, if we both come from the same place, from this nature place, why wouldn't that be more of something that works than coming up with something out of chemicals? It doesn't, that makes complete sense just on a logic place. Just I remember when I was a little kid, I don't know why I thought of this. My neighbor had these plants growing, and the guy said to me, the kid across the street, he goes, "That's mint. If you chew it, it's going to taste like spearmint gum," or And I go, "Oh, that's bullshit. No way." He goes, "Try it." So I did, and I was like, it was the first time in my life that I realized that everything sort of came from the ground. And it shocked me. Because there was a belief, I mean, we're talking about the early 1960s, like maybe 1960, that all of a sudden I'm eating a plant, I'm getting this great taste. And I remember taking it home and telling my mom about it, and it scared her. She got scared.
Yeah. Plants were
Plants,
dangerous.
they're dirty. They're in the ground where the dirt is. Dirt's bad.
Yeah.
These are people that came out of the 50s, which was so, space age antiseptic, fear based kind of living. It was an odd combination. Like, how did humans get so far away from just, it's like only a generation prior to that, they were doing that stuff still from.
Completely. And, we talk about that a lot in terms of the Industrial Revolution. It is so in our rearview mirror. Like it just happened. And the impact that it's had on us as consumers moving away from nature. And I mean, what we're doing at Green Goo is just bringing an old world concept that has been lost. And we humans have created, these behaviors as a result of the Industrial Revolution. And I always try to tell people, I'm like, nobody was trying to kill us or poison us. They didn't know better. They just wanted to be
Right.
able to provide to the masses large volumes of product, make you feel like you are getting more bang for your buck. So let's make sure that shampoo is as big as possible and fill it with as many preservatives, because it has a long ways to go, right? Because at that point, we didn't have the transportation and the technology that we have today. We didn't have Amazon, same day delivery to get to your house, let alone getting things to a manufacturing facility to produce large volumes. And so, when we talk about Green Goo in this tiny little tin that was sitting next to this like big bucket of something, and trying to help the consumer say, you're not getting less, you're getting more. This actually will go further. But in our minds, we needed to have the biggest jug of Vaseline, or the biggest container of shampoo. And so yeah, I think you're spot on in terms of this is only very recent, and it's a blip in the bigger picture of humanity. And it's a great opportunity to get back to our roots, because the reality is our telomeres are telling us it works. The environment is saying it's better for, the environment if we're making these choices, and the data's there. So, and we're finally seeing that things can perform better and give you the results you need.
I just thought of this when I was a kid. I think it was a shampoo called Prel. You remember that stuff?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It was a giant green bottle, and the stuff was so thick. And I think they did a commercial, if I'm recalling correctly, where they would drop like a pearl into the bottle and talk about how long it would take to get to the bottom, because this stuff was so rich with wonderfulness.
Yeah.
And it smelled awful, I thought. And I was told to use it because that's what was in the shower. And I remember thinking, I don't like this. This doesn't feel good to me, but it's good for me because they told me it was. And and it was, I bet if I looked at that and the ingredients on that, I would probably throw up.
Well, and then it becomes sort of the expectation, right? So like, I grew up using like Pantene, right? And it's full of parabens. But what's great is when you put it in your hair, it's just like your hair is silky smooth when you're washing it. It's just like your hand just slides off. And that became an expectation. So, you fast forward into a natural product that doesn't have, the paraben in it, or some of these other ingredients that might make things so soft. When you're washing it, what's the expectation? And so it's changing that expectation, just like sunscreen. Like, we weren't meant to be out in the sun for 24 hours. We don't need to apply sunscreen once and then be out in the sun for, 12 hours and not get sunburnt. Get out of the sun. And that was an interesting one in terms of not only coming up with a formula that wouldn't fail for the consumer, but also have them be aware of this fallacy that we should be able to go out into the sun for 12 hours. Bug spray, same thing. You don't want to spray once and be like, I'm good, no bugs are going to bite me for 24 hours.
You're basically painting over the pores in your skin with something, whether it's sunscreen or bug spray. I mean, it's really a fascinating idea of protecting yourself from nature, not being a part of it, protecting yourself from it. What an odd way of looking at things. It doesn't make any sense.
No,
I watched this documentary on the guy who he was living with the bears up in Alaska or something, and he stayed too long, and he got it.
He got he got what?
Eaten.
Oh, eaten because
I was
of the
doing
bug
my
spray,
southern
right?
thing. He got it. He got eaten. That's not what the part that I was fascinated with. There was a park ranger in the documentary um, talking about the guy, but while he was talking, and I don't know, he was covered. His face was so swarmed with gnats and flies and all these things that exist there in the summer in this humid sort of rural, super rural, remote place. But he wasn't affected by it, and I was thinking, what is this guy doing or not doing that he can stand there and not be affected by all these bugs? I know he's not putting off on his face. I know he's probably not doing anything. There's something about him living in that environment where those things aren't the enemy.
Interesting you should say that. And this is an area I wish I should market my bug spray more, because we have a group of hunters that will take our bug spray out, because if they use a traditional bug spray, then the prey knows that they're there. And
Yeah.
so they need something to blend in and yet still also be functional. And so, and it's just a blend of herbs that, the bugs don't like, but it doesn't detour, wildlife where you're reeking of off, and then you can't get your hunt.
Right. Plus you got to smell it too, and it's horrible. It smells like crap. I hated it. I hated as a kid putting that stuff on and sunscreen. I can't I don't wear sunscreen. I can't stand it.
It's
I wear a
sad what
hat
it's
and a
done.
shirt if I'm going to be in the sun for more than a certain amount of time, and then I get out.
Yeah.
So
I'm proud of states like Hawaii who have banned, certain ingredients that are bad for the coral reef, because obviously people are putting large amounts of sunscreen on and then going into the ocean, and
yeah,
it's obviously impacting the wildlife. And I remember being in my organic chemistry class, and we were studying, the oxybenzone ring, and I was like, wait, what? And I raised my hand and I'm like, to the professor, I'm like, that's a known carcinogen. That's in our sunscreen. That's the active ingredient. And he's like, yep. I'm like, but how does that happen? How does that get legally on, like, in a product so that we're using it? I was just like, I don't understand. And he's like, because that's the ingredient that, does what it does with the radiation to deflect the sun so we don't get sunburnt. But I'm like, at what cost? So then you start arguing, like, is the exponential rate of skin cancer really related to overexposure to sun, or
yeah.
is it related to the products that we're using?
Well, I don't know. It's probably a combination.
Sure.
I mean, if you look at a damaged ozone layer, that might be part of it too.
Which is real. I mean, that's
yeah,
happening
that's a
too.
real thing. We did it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we did.
So, well, if people want to get a hold of you and your products, I don't know if you want people getting a hold of you personally. You probably don't mind.
I don't mind at all.
I've
I
enjoyed
actually
it.
love it. I love when my customers reach out. Some of them become dear friends. So don't hesitate.
Look at that. A mother and two daughters have this wonderful company they can be reached. And let's talk about the company and the website and anything that people need to know, because what a wonderful thing you're doing.
Thank you. GreenGoo.com. Head to greengoo.com. You can get all your goodies there. You can even find the Southern butter there. So we got you covered. And you'll find our family and our contact information on there. And don't ever hesitate to reach out. Love to hear your story and see how we can help.
It sounds like you have such a wide variety of products that I guess you've been doing this for a while, right?
Yeah, we've
This
been
company
almost 10 years now.
10 years, yeah. You've been doing great work. I really appreciate having you on. Tell your sister I said hi, and your mom.
I will. Thank you.
I haven't met them, but just tell them Bob said hi.
I'll tell them Bob said hi. They're great. Yep. My sister lives one house down. So I'm sure I'll talk to her this evening and tell her Bob said hi.
Okay. Does she do podcasts too, or you're the voice of?
Yeah, she's a little shy, but she's the herbalist who likes to play with the plants and nature.
Oh,
But I'm trying to talk her into coming and hanging out with me sometimes because we're best friends and we have so much fun together. And she is just a gem. She radiates all the love and beauty that you experience in these Green Goo products. And so perhaps we'll hear her soon one day.
it might be fun. Just a thought. Come on together.
That would be fun. We'd have a
That
good
would be
banter
fun.
together.
We could see the magic of the family right here on a podcast. I think that would be awesome.
Let's do it. I'll
Just
talk her
rub
into
that
it.
out to her tonight when you see her. It
There
doesn't
you
have to
go.
be my show. It can be any show. I just think I would have loved to have had both of you on. I mean,
That
you're
would have been
amazing.
fun.
So she would add to the amazing. It would be amazing plus.
I'll tell her, I'm like, Bob said you need to come over and we need to hang out together and
Yes.
and
Well,
do a show
if
together.
there's some
Okay.
new launch of an amazing new thing, reach out to me and we'll have you both on.
I love it.
I'll
Thank you, Bob.
cook. I'll cook.
You
for all
cook.
the three of us.
We'll salve everybody up.
Well, you have a beautiful evening, and I really appreciate your time. And best of luck with the company and all the wonderful things you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Much appreciation for you folks listening to The Exploding Human. The website is theexplodinghuman.com. The YouTube channel is The Exploding Human with Bob Nickman. I want to thank Jodi Scott once again for being on the program. I hope next time her sister can join us. That would be fun. Maybe even her mom, the whole family. So please check them out at greengoo.com and have a fantastic day. Thank you.